Hi beautiful souls, today is all about momentum, that invisible yet undeniable force that shapes every chapter of our lives. Momentum is the quiet power behind positive thinking, exercise, weight loss, friendships, relationships, career shifts, spiritual awakenings, and even miracles. It's the thing that turns a single tiny action into a cascade of transformation. Momentum is what takes you from stuck to unstoppable, from confused to clear, from drifting to aligned. And the truth is, no matter how big or bold a new chapter seems, it always begins with something incredibly simple: beginning. Just beginning. Taking one step in the direction of what you desire. Momentum is not magic at first, but it becomes magic. And today, we're diving into why. We're exploring what Joe Dispenza says about momentum, how Abraham Hicks describes it through the lens of energy and vibration, a beautiful story Esther Hicks tells about alignment and the power of one small shift, scientific research that backs all of this up, and the miracle moments people experience when they finally break the inertia of their old patterns. So let's go deep. Because once momentum begins, your whole life can start moving into a completely new chapter. Think for a moment about how many things in your life changed because of one small shift: joining a gym, buying a book, saying yes to coffee with someone new, listening to a podcast, starting meditation, opening a dating app, booking a trip, choosing to walk each morning, or simply choosing a better thought than the one you were thinking before. Every transformation you've ever had began with one tiny decision to nudge yourself toward what felt even slightly better. That is momentum. It's not about the size of the step, it's about the direction of the step. And Abraham Hicks says this beautifully: a little bit of alignment goes a long way. Because once you start moving in the direction of who you truly are, your inner being takes over and the universe begins amplifying everything. It's like beginning to turn a wheel that then spins faster and faster until it carries you. But what stops us from beginning? Usually fear, overthinking, perfectionism, or the belief that a single step won't matter. Yet scientifically, it does. There's a psychological principle called activation energy, discovered in chemistry and later applied to human behavior. Activation energy is the energy required to start a reaction, and once the reaction begins, it releases its own energy that keeps it going. That's momentum in your life. Just getting started is the only hard part. Once you begin, the reward circuits in your brain activate, dopamine starts flowing, you create emotional positive feedback loops, and your brain begins craving continued movement. You literally become biologically pulled forward. Joe Dispenza talks about this constantly, how the brain and the body become addicted to whatever emotional state you repeat. And the moment you choose a new thought, a new behavior, or even a new vision of yourself, you interrupt that chemical addiction to the old reality. That interruption is the spark. It's the beginning of a new momentum that aligns with who you want to become. He teaches that every time you choose to think a better thought, even slightly better, you are firing and wiring new neural circuits. With repetition, those circuits become stronger. And once enough energy is routed into the new circuits, you hit what he calls a neurological tipping point, a moment where the brain prefers the new path. That's momentum at the biological level, tiny choices accumulating until they become a dominant pattern. Abraham Hicks explains this from the energetic perspective. When you choose a better feeling thought, you shift your vibration just enough to begin attracting similar thoughts, experiences, people, and opportunities. It becomes self-perpetuating. Esther tells a wonderful story about momentum and alignment, a story I love because it demonstrates how the universe responds the moment you shift even slightly. She talks about a day when everything seemed off. She woke frustrated, spilled something, stubbed her toe, felt rushed. You know that cascade of negative momentum that just seems to build on itself. And Abraham interrupted her and said, "You can stop this right now. This momentum is only continuing because you're not reaching for a better feeling thought." Esther took a breath and said, "I want ease. I want lightness. I want clarity." I want just one thing to feel better right now. And within minutes, she noticed her body relaxing. A friend called with something funny. A stranger complimented her outfit. A solution popped into her mind. And the whole day shifted, not because she forced anything, but because she looked for one thought that nudged her in the right direction. And that little bit of positive momentum cascaded. That's the beauty of momentum in our everyday lives. It's not about making a giant leap. It's about interrupting the old flow and activating a new one. Think about weight loss. Nobody loses 20 or 50 pounds in a day. The miracle isn't the final transformation. The miracle is the moment you get back on the treadmill, or choose a walk, or make a nutritious meal, or pick water instead of soda. That moment, the getting started moment, is the miracle. Because that moment is you shifting your trajectory. Momentum is what carries the actual results into your life. The same is true for exercise. Research shows that the hardest part of a workout is putting your shoes on. Behavioral scientists talk about the 20-second rule. Make the first step 20 seconds easier, and you're exponentially more likely to follow through. That's why laying out your workout clothes the night before increases the odds of exercising by nearly 80%. That's momentum science. One small choice reduces the activation energy, makes the first step easier, and once you start moving, your brain floods your body with dopamine, endorphins, serotonin, and BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which literally makes you feel good enough to want to continue. The miracle isn't the 1-hour workout, it's the first 30 seconds when you go from sitting to standing. The miracle is in the moment you say, okay, let's move. Momentum. And friendships, momentum matters there too. Think about how many friendships began with someone just taking one step, sending a text, saying hi, suggesting coffee, complimenting someone, replying to a message, inviting someone to join a group. One small gesture creates emotional momentum that leads to connection, trust, shared experiences, inside jokes, vulnerability, support, all because one person took one small step. Relationships work the same way. Positive relational momentum grows from consistent small kindnesses, checking in, expressing appreciation, listening with presence, sending a good morning message, giving a compliment, choosing patience, saying, I love you, offering a hug, speaking truth gently instead of exploding. Neuroscience shows that relationships thrive on positive emotional deposits, tiny ones. John Gottman's research on marriages found that the happiest couples maintain a magic ratio of 5 positive interactions for every negative one. That's momentum. You build it little by little until your relationship becomes an emotionally safe, loving ecosystem. And romantic momentum can begin with something incredibly small, swiping right, smiling across a room, saying yes to a date, opening a conversation, choosing to be honest about your feelings, choosing vulnerability instead of fear. Momentum is always the beginning of a new chapter in love. Even reconnecting with someone, or healing from heartbreak, begins with one small choice. A conversation, a moment of closure, a willingness to forgive, a decision to choose yourself. Every new chapter in love begins with a step. Momentum is also what allows miracle stories to happen. The ones we hear about where someone was sick and suddenly healed, or someone was broke and suddenly found opportunity, or someone was lonely and suddenly found their soul family, or someone was devastated and suddenly found purpose. But the miracle rarely begins at the moment of the breakthrough. It begins much earlier, in the moment the person chooses a new belief. The moment they say, I'm ready for something better. Joe Dispenza's work is full of miracle stories, people healing from chronic illness, reversing diagnoses, walking again after paralysis, shrinking tumors, restoring sight, healing autoimmune conditions. And while on the surface these stories seem sudden, what actually happened is that the person built momentum inside themselves, emotionally, vibrationally, neurologically. They rehearsed a new future in the mind over and over until the brain accepted it as reality. And that internal momentum eventually expressed itself in the physical world. Joe Dispenza talks about how the quantum field responds to consistent intention and elevated emotion. And he always says, your energy has to become greater than your environment, greater than your old emotions, greater than your unconscious habits. That's momentum. That moment you choose to feel gratitude before the miracle arrives, that's the start. That moment you sit in meditation and choose to see yourself healthy even though the current reality says otherwise, that's the start. That moment you decide to believe that your future is calling you, that's momentum beginning its work. Esther Hicks describes miracles through the lens of alignment. To them, a miracle is simply what happens naturally when you're no longer blocking your own energy. And momentum is the process of releasing resistance one thought at a time. Miracles become the natural result of sustained allowing. Esther tells a story of someone who desperately wanted a partner and had been trying for years with no results. They came to a workshop and said, I'm doing everything. I'm visualizing. I'm journaling. I'm scripting. I'm meditating. Nothing is happening. And Abraham said, every time you say, nothing is happening, you slow the momentum. You keep resetting the vibration to zero. The person asked, so what do I do? And Abraham said, just appreciate anything in your life. Anything that feels good. Build momentum in a place that's easy. Because momentum is transferable. Once you have general momentum of positive emotion, it will flow into the subject of love too. The person took the advice. They didn't think about dating for a while. They just focused on appreciation, fun, nature, laughter, creativity, dogs, sunsets, books, music, anything that felt good. And a few weeks later they met someone in the most effortless way, the kind of story that feels like destiny. But it wasn't destiny. It was momentum finally flowing freely. Science backs this up too. Positive emotional momentum creates what psychologists call upward spirals. Research from Barbara Fredrickson at the University of North Carolina shows that positive emotions, even small ones, create cascading improvements in thinking, problem-solving, creativity, resilience, and physical health. She calls it the broaden and build theory. One positive thought expands your awareness, which creates another positive emotion, and another, building psychological resources and momentum toward thriving. That's why one small action, cleaning a drawer, opening a window, taking a walk, doing 2 minutes of breathwork, sending a kind text, can shift your entire day. Because positive momentum multiplies. Another scientific study from Harvard showed that people who imagined themselves exercising for a few minutes a day, literally just visualizing movement, experienced measurable changes in muscle strength. That's momentum at the neurological level. You think a thought, the body responds, and momentum begins. Imagine what happens when you not only think a thought but also act. Momentum becomes a force. And spiritually, momentum is what pulls you into a new chapter. Esther Hicks describes every new chapter as a vibrational reality that already exists. You don't create it. You tune into it. And the tuning begins with tiny emotional shifts. If you want a better relationship, you don't jump from loneliness to ecstasy. You go from loneliness to hope. From hope to curiosity. From curiosity to eagerness. From eagerness to appreciation. Each step has its own momentum. And one day you find yourself in love. If you want money, you don't jump from fear to abundance. You go from fear to relief. From relief to trust. From trust to knowing. From knowing to opportunity. From opportunity to expansion. And one day you find yourself prosperous. If you want healing, you don't jump from pain to perfect health. You go from pain to soothing. From soothing to rest. From rest to clarity. From clarity to empowerment. From empowerment to vitality. And one day you find yourself whole. Momentum is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. And this is why the beginning matters. Life changes when you begin. It doesn't change when you finish. Your new chapter begins when you take the first step, not when the results show up. Positive thinking works the same way. People think it's about forcing happy thoughts, but it's not. It's about choosing thoughts that feel slightly better than the ones you're currently thinking. That's how you start momentum. If you're thinking, I'm stuck, a slightly better thought might be, I'm open to new possibilities. If you're thinking, nothing ever works out for me, a slightly better thought is, sometimes things work out for me, and I appreciate those times. If you're thinking, I'm overwhelmed, a better thought is, I can do one small thing right now. Those small shifts create emotional leverage. And emotional leverage creates momentum. Once momentum starts, it begins gathering supportive evidence. You notice little synchronicities. You see repeating numbers. You get a good idea. Someone texts. An opportunity shows up. You feel a burst of energy. And the universe says, yes, more of that. Because momentum is magnetic. It gathers whatever is aligned with its frequency. If you want a new chapter, you don't need to overhaul your entire life. You just need to shift your momentum. 1 degree of change today becomes a completely different destination in a few months. Think about an airplane. If the pilot shifts the nose of the plane by just a few degrees, the aircraft lands in an entirely different city. That's your life. You don't need to move mountains. You just need to tilt a little bit in the direction of your joy, and momentum will take you the rest of the way. Another miracle story Joe Dispenza shares is about a woman who healed from years of chronic fatigue and depression. She said the day everything shifted wasn't the day she was healed. It was the day she decided to sit and meditate even though she felt nothing. That was the miracle. Not the healing. The decision to begin. She said, something in me whispered, just start, just give the new version of yourself a chance. That whisper is momentum. Esther Hicks often says, you're always just one thought away from a better feeling, and that thought begins a chain reaction that can transform your entire life. Momentum is accumulation. Accumulated thought, accumulated emotion, accumulated energy, accumulated action. What starts microscopic becomes monumental. And momentum is compassionate. You don't lose all your progress when you have a bad day. You just pause momentum. And the moment you choose a better thought or take a small action, momentum resumes. It is endlessly forgiving. It is always available. It is always ready to continue building your future. Look at your life right now. Every area is revealing the momentum you've been practicing. Your relationships show emotional momentum. Your habits show physical momentum. Your beliefs show mental momentum. Your manifestations show vibrational momentum. Nothing is random. Nothing just happens. It all builds. And the empowering part is this: you can redirect momentum at any time. You can shift the pattern. You can interrupt the spiral. You can create a new trajectory. All you need to do is begin. And remember, beginning is tiny. Beginning is gentle. Beginning is whisper level. Maybe your momentum today is drinking water. Maybe it's taking a walk. Maybe it's doing one yoga pose. Maybe it's cleaning one corner of your room. Maybe it's lighting a candle. Maybe it's writing one sentence in a journal. Maybe it's texting someone back. Maybe it's sending out a job application. Maybe it's sitting in silence for 30 seconds. Maybe it's choosing a better thought. The beginning doesn't need to be dramatic. But what it leads to often is. And when you start momentum, life starts meeting you. That's when the magic happens. That's when synchronicities begin showing up like cosmic breadcrumbs. That's when people appear who match your new vibration. That's when opportunities come seemingly out of nowhere. That's when clarity drops in. That's when energy increases. That's when joy becomes easier. That's when you step into a new chapter. Every new chapter you've ever lived began this way, with a small movement that led to a big unfolding. Momentum is the universe's love language. When you move, it moves with you. When you align, it aligns everything around you. When you choose a new direction, life rearranges itself to support you. And when you build momentum toward love, joy, clarity, health, connection, abundance, purpose, and self-alignment, miracles become normal. So today, let this be the moment you shift your momentum. Let this be the moment you choose one thought, one action, one breath, one decision that nudges you toward the version of yourself you're becoming. Because momentum is always waiting for you. And once it starts, nothing can stop what your life is becoming. And if this message inspired you, share your own momentum miracle in the comments. And of course, like and subscribe.